One of the great problems with trees and ancestry is that they're usually very light on detail. The main cause of this is ancestry itself. When you add records from their databases, it rarely adds what a genealogist would like, even when that information is right there in the record. Let's see how we can improve things. I've recreated a small part of my own tree by taking the records just as Ancestry suggested. After all, they have all the records, at least according to the ads, so they must be right. So let's look at my great-grandfather, James Rigby. So here's his profile as suggested by Ancestry. Now the first thing to deal with are the mistranscriptions. In some of Ancestry's indexes, Rigby has been transcribed as Wrigley. Let's get those fixed. And his wife was not born a Rigby, and certainly not a Wrigley, so clear out the surname for now. So let's have a look down the events in his life. First is his birth. Now he was baptised in 1879, so we can obviously improve on 1880. If we check the GRO birth index, there are quite a few James Rigbys born around then, so let's have a look at the baptism record. Well, it tells us the family's address, which is where James was born. If we enter the details of this baptism, whenever we return, it'll be obvious what's happened. Let's also fix the address of the church. In the UK, addresses follow a standard format, unknown in Utah. Let's also adjust the birth. I'm guessing he was born in the month before the baptism. And he was born in Gilliburn Walks. Now that baptism record also gives his father's occupation, so let's put that in. James also has a twin brother, Henry. Now if we search for his birth registration, Henry's a lot easier to find, and there's just one in the right period, the second quarter of 1879. If we use the GRO's own website, we find the same page number also includes our James. Both show the mother's maiden name as Preston. So let's fill that in. Now the first census where James appears is 1881. In the UK, censuses take place on a single date. Now Americans don't understand this because theirs take many weeks. In fact, the first records for the 1920 US Census are from 1917. Let's see the image. It tells us a proper address. So Market Street, number 131. So we can fill in details for James. Now we can also fill out equivalent details for everyone else in the family. But I'm just dealing with James for the time being. This video would be very long indeed. It's a big family. You get the picture. When you're filling in this sort of thing, copy and paste is your friend. So we can now deal with 1891. Note that now James has an occupation, so we can add it to his profile. Don't forget the source. And 1901 census as well. By 1901 he's taking up the trade that he was to have for the rest of his life. Painter and decorator. And the 1911 census as well. In 1911 James is married, but Ancestry failed to come up with a hint for a matching marriage. 1911 entry though tells us that the couple have been married 6 years, so 1904 to 1905. So in the GRO marriages we have a couple of entries in the Chorley area that fit. The first one I try doesn't mention an Alice, but the second one I try mentions Alice Bentham. And if I cross-reference that with the Lancashire BMD site, I find that that marriage took place at Croston Parish Church. Now in the 1911 census, Alice says she came from Croston, so that is going to be her. Let's fill that in. And it was the second quarter. Now when it comes to dates, Ancestry doesn't understand what a normal date range is, but it does allow them to put them in. So we could have said about May 1904, but the GRO index actually means from the first day of April to the last day of June. And we can now fill in Alice's maiden name. So let's have a look at the hint for the 1939 register. Again, Americans can't grasp this as a snapshot of a single day, in this case 29th of September 1939. And there's a lot more information than is copied to your tree by Ancestry. We need to do this copying for ourselves. So let's fill in the address. Just up the road from where he lived. Notice that Ancestry have even thrown away the name of the town. We'll tidy up his wife while we're there. This is only a small family, but the large one you copy and paste will help you tidy up a lot of records in one screenful. So let's fix the dates of birth as well. Now, James didn't know the year of his birth, though he did know his birthday, so we can fix that. Get that saved. And note that I've left the event date in the clipboard. This makes it easier to fill in occupations afterwards. So let's do that now. You can just paste in that date. And yes, put the source in. And fill in Alice's occupation too. She may have been just a housewife in the society of the time, but she's working. We ought to remember it. In a few months' time, she might be working in a musician's factory. Again, fill in the source. Next, we'll tidy up the death registration. Again, we'll fill in a date range for the death registration. Now we can obviously add more detail. The 1939 register will give proper birth dates for his children, for example. So, looking down the profile, we get a much better impression of James's life. We see the important events in his life, where he lived, what he did for a living. There's much more to add, of course. I have details from all sorts of sources, but the ones here are all accessible with an ordinary Ancestry subscription.